You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we have major news that we've been waiting for out of the Ninth Circuit. Can you explain what just happened in court?
Yeah, Brian, it's not particularly good news. People may remember that a Trump-appointed judge by the name of Karen Immergut prohibited Donald Trump. She entered a temporary restraining order prohibiting him from federalizing the Oregon National Guard and deploying them to the streets of Portland. Why? Because Portland was not war-ravaged. Portland was not under attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists, as Donald Trump and his department tried to peddle to Judge Immergut. So she said, because there is no factual basis, you can't do it. The law doesn't permit you to do it. Well, guess what? Donald Trump and his DOJ ran up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals again, just like they did in California, and a panel just entered a ruling putting a stay on Judge Immergut's temporary restraining order. So what does that mean? That means Donald Trump can begin federalizing the Oregon State National Guard and sending them onto the streets of Portland, Oregon. Interestingly, Brian, the three-judge panel that just entered this ruling and order, two Trump appointees who, I know you'll be shocked, I hope you're sitting down, ruled in favor of Donald Trump, and a Bill Clinton appointed judge who issued a dissent. And it's a 93-page opinion. I'm still plowing through it. It was just released. But, you know, the dissenting opinion said, given the realities and given the factual findings of Judge Immergut, who is the trial court judge empowered to make factual findings, courts of appeals do not make factual findings. Given the factual findings that Portland was not war-ravaged, that there were not domestic terrorists that had Portland under siege, people who look at this ruling by the appeals court are likely to view it as, quote, absurd, not just lawless or unconstitutional, but absurd. And I happen to agree with that dissenting judge, but here we are.
And so, Glenn, the obvious question here moving forward is, because we just got this ruling, a ruling that you and I would both agree is an erroneous ruling, but because we have this ruling from a three-judge panel, wouldn't the next obvious step here be to request en banc review from the full 29-judge bench at the Ninth Circuit?
Yeah, I can't imagine why the state of Oregon, the state attorney general, wouldn't want to ask the entire appellate court bench, as you say, all 29 judges, to sit en banc, full bench. And, you know, let's take the temperature of every judge on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the process for that is, I believe it's a simple majority of the judges would have to vote in favor of taking the case for en banc.
And by the way,
review.
To that point, there are, of the 29 judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, 16 of them were appointed by Democrats. And so even if you think about the LA decision where two Trump appointees plus I believe it might have been a Biden appointee decided to overturn Judge Breyer's ruling, even if we lose one, there still, if you think about it from a party line perspective, there should be enough to give you a simple majority to be able to allow this en banc review to proceed.
Yeah, Brian, and it's a damn shame that we have to do this sort of tentative head count of how judges might vote based on the precedent that appointed the judge. But here's the thing. I mean, there is a little bit of a silver lining lurking in front of this big, enormous orange dark cloud. And that is, look at Judge Karen Immergut, because she's the one who granted the temporary restraining order in Portland in the first place. She was appointed by Donald Trump. And Brian, there's a now famous line in her ruling denying Trump, you know, the ability to federalize the National Guard and send them to Portland, where she says, listen, the Trump administration's assertions are, quote, untethered to the facts. Boy, that's a pretty powerful factual determination by a trial court judge. So she is a Trump appointee. So I would never say, look, every single Trump appointed judge is likely to vote in favor of a president who is obviously abusing his power. He's abusing the authority of the presidency. He's violating federal laws. He's violating the Constitution. Lots of judges nationwide have reached those findings in any number of Trump-associated cases. So I wouldn't say, every Trump-appointed judge is likely to rule in favor of somebody who is a self-proclaimed day one dictator.
Glenn, here's what I'm wondering about, because we've spoken at length about the conditions that need to be met, and it needs to be some foreign invasion, a rebellion or insurrection, or a failure of the local government to be able to effectuate its laws. None of those planks were satisfied. None of those conditions were met here. There is no foreign invasion. There's no insurrection. We've seen famously the pictures from Portland include like 12 people protesting outside an ICE facility, half of whom are dressed up as frogs and unicorns, and there's no failure of the local police there, law enforcement, to be able to effectuate its laws. I mean, again, these are just a few people. This is certainly not mayhem or chaos. And so what was the basis here for these two Trump appointees to rule in favor of the Trump administration in their request to get these troops deployed there?
Brian, it's a great question, and I think the answer will be troubling to our viewers. As you just laid out, there are basically three reasons that a president has the lawful authority under a very old federal statute to federalize the National Guard, basically take them over, deputize them as federal troops and let them go into, the streets of a state or a town. If there is a rebellion against the United States, there is no rebellion. If there's an insurrection against the United States, there is no insurrection. Or if the federal government can't, with its regular forces, execute the federal laws of the nation, that is the third prong on which the Trump administration hung its hat. And frankly, the federal government has been enforcing the federal laws of Oregon and Portland for a very long time. So there is no inability to do it. But here is what those two Trump-appointed judges did. You remember that thing called the presumption of regularity, that you presume that a president is always acting regularly and in good faith, trying to abide by the laws when he's making these kinds of weighty decisions. So, Brian, you have the presumption of regularity, and then there is this doctrine that says you have to give a healthy dose of deference to the president on these sort of quasi-military matters, because he is really in the best position to assess whether there's an insurrection or a rebellion, or whether the federal government simply can't enforce the federal law because of Portland being war-ravaged and under siege by domestic terrorists. The problem is you can't give Donald Trump deference that, that he's going to make the right decision by the American people for the right reasons. Brian, what did we just see Donald Trump post, who were peacefully protesting, exercising their First Amendment rights to free speech and their right to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances? This is the person we're going to give a presumption of regularity. This is the person that the courts will continue to blindly say, you've got to give him a trainload of deference that he's doing the right thing for the right reasons. We are going to presumption of regularity ourselves right out of a democracy if we're not careful. And, the federal judges, I don't care who you were appointed by, should not turn a blind eye to who Donald Trump is and what Donald Trump is trying to accomplish. And as he told us all, he wanted to be a dictator on day one, and now he's trying to make good on that threat.
Well, look, a lot remains to be seen in terms of what happens next at the Ninth Circuit. What I hope that we'll see is an immediate request for en banc review so that the full Ninth Circuit can hear this case and hopefully undo or reverse the decision that was put forward by this three-judge panel, of which two of the judges are Trump nominees. So a lot to happen still on this whole front. For those who are watching, if you'd like to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on the screen. Great way to follow along with this news, to support our work, and to support independent media. And of course, it's always 100% free. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn